I would say if you subscribe to going by intuition and trying to quiet the thinking mind sometimes in ways that perhaps I couldn't necessarily document or prove, I think we're getting close to seeing some real fireworks in the markets.
The land of Arcadia.
Well, hello there, my friends, and welcome to Arcadia. Chris Marcus here with you on Thursday, June 28th for this week's weekly market wrap-up. That's right, it's Thursday, not Friday, because here in Denver, it was 103 degrees today, so we're going to Waterworld tomorrow. Yeah! So anyway, we have the recap on Thursday, and fascinating week as always. How should we start this off? I would say if you subscribe to going by intuition and trying to quiet the thinking mind sometimes in ways that perhaps I couldn't necessarily document or prove, I think we're getting close to seeing some real fireworks in the markets. You just listen to the way people talk, the things that are mentioned, and I just get the feeling that something is going on beneath the surface. Certainly, we'll cover some of the stories of what's actually happening on the surface, but certainly I'm excited for an exciting second half of 2018. All right, so to dig in, first of all, a shout out to an Arcadia super fan, Khadija the Great, who is truck driving, last check, through Chicago. So now you'll be able to watch, well, maybe just listen to the weekly wrap up and keep yourself safe out there on the roads. First one here, there we go. The Fed test fails Deutsche Bank, forces JP Morgan, Goldman, 4 others to limit payouts. As you'll be hearing more about, you've heard about here for a little while, we'll be hearing plenty more about going forward. I don't think anybody really knows for sure, but certainly does not sound as if it's good within Deutsche Bank. I'm getting the feeling that it is perhaps going to be more on the side of a Lehman type moment than not. Again, a little early to say, although coming up around about a month after their downgrade. So if we see some of the effects of that downgrade, perhaps on their derivative book, certainly things not going well. And also interesting that here Goldman and Morgan and JP Morgan, American Express, the Fed now saying maybe the banks aren't quite as strong. I don't really put much credence into any Fed or Reserve bank test because the Fed is owned by the banks yet. I did notice a fellow that I find pretty informed on Twitter who was mentioning now all of a sudden some of the Fed talk is more back towards, oh, maybe we do need to lower interest rates and print more money, which I do continue to expect will happen at some point. Perhaps it'll be sooner than later. Here is a quick one from Dave Kranzler. Had him interviewed on our show last week. Great interview, especially because Dave's kind of been there and seen a lot of these things. So was exciting to hear his perspective and interesting. He mentions today, Deutsche Bank is melting away. Either the Booba is planning a big bailout or this will infect the U.S. too big to fails like smallpox. Probably why Goldman Sachs and Morgan Stanley stocks look like they already have the virus. So make of that what you will. I don't think Dave is saying that it's necessarily happening tomorrow, but do respect his opinion. So just passing that along. That's the feeling I get at this point. We'll certainly keep you posted. Now over to the crypto world, where not the best of days for crypto owners, unless you were looking for a chance to buy more at a cheaper price, which you have certainly gotten. I actually did buy a bunch more cryptos over the past week. From my perspective, nothing has fundamentally changed. And again, here you see, it's just like when I look at the reasons, which, again, maybe just because there's an article doesn't mean that's necessarily the reason price moved, but It's interesting. Crypto slide accelerates since Congress warned Bitcoin poses threat to U.S. election. I'm not quite sure what that threat would be. Although, again, I think it's kind of ironic. Here is Congress. I don't know what you would actually call the technical association with the CIA, but groups within the U.S. government umbrella that go around rigging elections all over the planet. I continue to hear more and more evidence that with the Democratic National Committee, convention, whatever you call it, basically what there appears to be evidence of them doing and spying during the election make Watergate look like a Sunday school picnic. So I don't know. I guess you could blame the elections on Bitcoin, although if that's the reason why people are selling, then again, from my perspective, you have a technology that is necessarily going to need to be used. You see, as we talked about, the banks falling apart, the problems there. And interestingly enough, all this time sitting here talking about the effects of the dollar decaying, and cryptos taking up in place of that. Here we have an article how Iran can use Bitcoin to avoid U.S. sanctions. Basically, effective November 4th, Trump demands all trade with Iran to cease. Iran could potentially use Bitcoin as a workaround. Keep in mind, we saw something similar to this a few years ago when sanctions were placed on Iran and they started receiving gold for their oil. They're either speculating about doing that or actually did it. But again, this is what happens when you try and manipulate natural demand, which certainly the dollar has been doing for a long time. We're seeing the blowback now. So with that said, wow, Bitcoin below 6,000, Litecoin down to 75 bucks. I got to say, I didn't expect to see that. As you can see, and if you've been looking for the last couple of weeks, basically a ton of red. They've just gotten pummeled. And really, it's time to make you don't have to make any decision. But from my perspective, if you think that this is technology that is as advertised, which I believe it to be, again, you may feel differently, and I'm just sharing how I am looking at it. But if you believe that it's technology that is going to need to be used, that is being set up as a response to everything that's happening, to what's coming out about government, what's coming out about the financial system, the banking system, if you see this as replacement, then prices are going to go a lot higher. Interesting, perhaps we'll do a video about this next week. Cliff High's new report was out, and he says crypto owners may be extremely giddy around the 9th or to 12th of July. So again, that's just an indication. Don't go out and mortgage the farm. But I get the feeling that we're on the verge of a big turnaround. And maybe you agree, maybe you don't. Leave a comment below. Would love to hear what you think. And then lastly, we'll take a quick look at the price of the metals. This web page is using significant energy, but it's going to load anyway. Thank you, Mac and Steve Jobs. Yeah, silver kind of below 16 bucks today. Similar story with cryptos, and I can understand it if you're sitting out there thinking, all right, I'm tired of hearing about the markets manipulated. One day they're going to rise. I can understand that. Certainly, all I can point out is that the markets go on the time schedule that they have. And when you look at the fundamentals and developments that are taking place, then you can get a pretty good informed idea of where things are going. You make your own decisions, but that is what I am seeing. And so with that said, going to wrap up for tonight. Thank you as always for watching. Hit the thumbs up button. That apparently YouTube algorithm will help more people see this good stuff. I'm going to go hit Waterworld tomorrow. I hope you all have a great weekend, and I will see you again next week. Thanks so much.
The land of